Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Doorstep History,
which is coming once again from Soho House.
Now for this series, most of our programmes are coming from here. This is Soho House in Handsworth.
The dining room was the focus of this house.
First, Matthew Bolton, a former resident of Soho House, shows us a little bit more about his former property.
Welcome to my breakfast room. In the early mornings, sun would cascade through these windows and I would sit here and have breakfast with my daughter Anne and my son Matthew. There were children from my second marriage. My first wife died in 1759. But I remarried. And some people were upset over my remarriage because I married my late wife's sister. But I was in love with her. And she gave me two beautiful children, my lovely daughter and my marvellous son. And we had marvellous time sitting here having our breakfast. And of course, on the fireplace, my good friend Josiah Wedgwood supplied me with beautiful things, and of course in my cabinet, Wedgwood porcelain. We only had the best, of course, but of course we would help Wedgwood with his pottering things, and he would help me with my science. He would help me with measurements of temperature and heat, and help me with optics. And so we worked together. This is how we are. We work together as friends. And as a family, we were wonderful. How I miss those times in this room. This beautiful room.
Now, a fascinating project is underway in the Black Country, which is looking at how the dialect of the area changes as you move from town to town.
Rights and Equality Sandwell were granted £77,000 to do a project through the Heritage Lottery Fund about the dialect across the Black Country. It came about because one of the people who works for Rights and Equality wasn't born around here. She was born in Warwickshire, and she was intrigued by all the different variations in dialect when she was on the bus going into work, and she thought it would be useful to look at the different towns and look at different age ranges of people and see how the dialect varies from town to town.
It's said that part of this project, the idea is to see if you can work out the difference between the dialects of Cradley, Gornal, Tipton. So how would you know? How can you tell the difference?
Cradley, they tend to talk a lot, very, very fast, and the pitch is a lot higher to me than the Tipton dialect. Gornal, it's a lot deeper, if you know what I mean, a lot harsher than, say, Tipton. But different pronunciations of words. They each have got their own way of saying work or work.
What have we got here? Find out why you ache all over.
No, that's wrong. It's find out why you ache all over. You of course speak like we can. Do you want to move on to the next one? See what's on there?
No. Face ache, backache and headache.
Face ache, backache and headache. Well, this is all about romance, so we changed it to all about wenching and cooting. Don't you ever go down the cut with a wench?
So you're courting, not courting on the cut?
Courting couples down the cut.
Don't be hungry, have some tea.
It's right, it's really Derby clown, make some tea.
There's one next to it.
Can you fix it if it's bust?
So can you fix it if it is broken?
If it is broken, yes. You're very posh, aren't you?
I'm from Birmingham.
Tipton's the heart of the Black Country, so its dialect has got to be the true dialect. And of course the Black Country dialect itself is the closest to, so they reckon, to Shakespearean English. if Shakespeare came back, he could understand what we were saying to him.
First of our films, Tipton, will be released to the general public here at Tipton Library, and that'll be the first of our findings, and then we'll do the same for the other towns as well.
When we was kids, we used to play outside, and they always used to come out and say, oh, go and play up your own end. You know, we used to play tin can of lurkey with the cans.
Say that again.
Tin can of lurkey.
A lurkey? What?
Yeah.
Tin can of lurkey?
We used to get these cans, obviously turn them upside down, and you used to have to creep upon somebody that got the back turned and put the cans down.
You'd make your choice, but to me, pop is anything that's not water.
Yeah. Did you have the pop man?
I did, yeah. Yeah, we had the pop man. God, yeah. And there was always Dailer pops as well, because Dailer was not far from where we lived, and I think my dad used to fetch them. And I remember there was some pops, not sure which ones there was, but there was characters. So you'd have like I don't know, Tina Raspberry or something. So the Raspberry was like a girl, and Adam Apple or something like that. And there was Appleade and Cherryade, and yeah, pop man.
Do you remember
that would rot your teeth now, wouldn't it? That stuff.
And the deposits on the bottles, do you remember that?
Yeah, because you could take the bottle, that's right, you took them back and you got, was it 5 pence a bottle, or if that, 10 pence, something like that. But yeah, everybody saved the bottles.
Any tales of pinching pop bottles? I'm sure you didn't.
No, I ain't got no tales of the pop bottles. I was quite young then, so it was just the pop was there and then it weren't there. So, but I do remember the pop man and the milkman. And the insurance man, at one point you had an insurance man that used to come and collect money, you know, none of this. There was somebody coming all the time. It's the milkman, it's the insurance man, somebody else man. You don't have none of that now, do you?
No.
No, I wouldn't say that I can. I mean, we used to come to our house every Saturday. Now I think we used to have like 6 bottles. We used to get the bottles ready and have the money back. But going back to bottles and having the money back, it's like the Green Shield stamps. I can remember saving, you know, I was desperate to get to the baths and my parents wasn't well off, and I desperately wanted to get to the baths, and I got these Green Shield stamps and obviously take them in and, you know, get the money for them. We used to take the peelings to the little farmer at the farmyard that was by us where we lived, and we used to take a bucket of peelings and he used to give us a penny for these peelings. Yeah, I remember going in, and then the lady next door, thinking about it, it was quite cruel really. She was on her own, but we used to run over to her garden and pinch the rhubarb and then run back.
Was when we had the coal fires, what was left in the grate the next morning, like the bits from the coal and everything, that would be the gleeds. At one time, if somebody got a high-pitched voice, she'd say, it sounds like a gleed under a door. Because it was when the bits of ash and that used to get stuck under the door, and as you shut the door, it would literally screech.
That's something where, especially when you're a young boy as well and a bit embarrassed, is sometimes you used to go out with your mum or your nan and say, you got something on your face, so of course I'd spit on an handkerchief and just give you like a dab, like a cat lick. So again, that was another family thing.
And I am together, well, because when Dennis went, he split up with his missus, bless him. And he says, I'm going off on holiday, and he says, I'm going up the port. I says, don't you dare go in a wenching. I says, you keep away from him. He come back about a month later, 3 weeks later. He says, Anne, what's you been up to? I says, you been wenching here? He said, yes. I said, okay, who is she? Come on. And he told me. And anyway, because she lives on about, she used to do a coal run and she used to work up at the Ellesmere Port Mews here. She come down to visit with Dennis, and every few minutes Dennis would be saying, Annie, translate, because she couldn't understand it. Annie, translate. So I was Bridgie, bless her, she's golden, and now of course she don't, well, she's been wet for a good few years, and You know, so now it's Bridgie, translator, and it's somebody else talking. He's a lovely character, he is. And Bridgie, oh, she's golden, she really is.
The back of Rackham's a regular one. The one who I used to use that with quite a lot is my late stepmother, wife's stepmom.
Right.
She's only a few years older than me. Father-in-law married a younger model.
Right.
And I used to ring up and say, "You been round the back of Rackham's to get some pennies yet?" That was quite a
So what did you mean by that?
Well, everybody knew the back of Rackham's was where the prostitutes used to hang out. So they say.
Now we're going to take a quick break, but in a few minutes we'll have more historical stories from across the Midlands. So stay tuned. Now, a famous steam train has flown into Tyseley and Birmingham.
It has, and Norman got ahead of steam and made tracks to Tyseley Locomotive Works to find out a little bit more.
The world's most famous train, the Flying Scotsman, steamed into Birmingham for this weekend's Birmingham Heritage Festival, being held at the Tyseley Railway Works. As I discovered, the train has got connections with Birmingham.
During the Flying Scotsman's most recent £4.2 million overhaul, we did quite a lot of the work here on the Scotsman, quietly behind the scenes. A lot of the motion that you see behind me, the rods connected to the wheels, and the wheels themselves were overhauled here at Tyseley. So as a thank you, the National Railway Museum allowed us to have it for this weekend. We were very lucky because the loco was available during the same week that Birmingham Heritage Week was going on, so we were able to combine the two. Hence, we have Flying Scotsman here at Tyseley for Birmingham Heritage Week. Apart from Thomas the Tank Engine, I think it probably is the most, it's safe to say it's the world's most famous real steam locomotive. It has helped that it shares the same name as a very famous non-stop service train that runs between King's Cross and Edinburgh and back every day, and still runs to this day. So the Flying Scotsman has always caught the public's imagination.
So it's not until you get down here, is it? You just see the size of this. I mean, look, it's way above our head here. We haven't even got to the Flying Scotsman emblem and logo there.
No, absolutely not. Because of course, when you see these things, you're typically standing on a platform next to them, and so you only see the top half. We're standing down at rail level next to the motion, a lot of which was overhauled at Tyseley. And we're also standing next to the wheels, which I'm 6'2", and they're a lot larger than I am.
Certainly are.
When British Rail stopped steam in 1968, Flying Scotsman was one of the few steam locomotives that was able to still run. So there was a period of several years where Flying Scotsman was the only steam locomotive running on British railways. It was also the first steam locomotive to be bought and used and run on British Rail in preservation. That was by a gentleman called Alan Pegler in the mid-60s. Flying Scotsman also supposedly was the first steam locomotive in Britain to do 100 miles an hour. This is disputed by us people from the Great Western Railway who claim City of Truro did it in 1904. It can run successfully for about 60-65 miles before they have to be refilled with water, and the only way to do that nowadays is to find a siding that's got road access fairly close to it, and you have a road tanker that comes along and pumps water out the tanker and into the tender of the locomotive. It takes about 10 minutes, and then off you go again. So looking at the water filler for the tender, and this is there's a 3-inch adapter and a 4-inch adapter depending on how big your hose is, and of course the on-off tap, and so the road tanker would come along, hook up here, and fill the locomotive up, and there's one of these on each side, so it doesn't matter which way you're going. The Flying Scotsman's tender can take about 5,000 gallons at the most. The locomotive, as you see it today, Flying Scotsman, is in its British Rail livery, which it carried from 1949 through the end of its British Rail career in 1963. and it's a slightly darker green. It says British Rail, and of course it's got its British Rail number on the side. However, most people will know the locomotive in a slightly lighter apple green and carrying the number 4472, which the National Railway Museum ensures us it will do soon. And what's quite amazing is to think that when this thing is travelling at 75 miles an hour, these wheels are going round approximately between 7 and 8 times a second. So all this motion is rotating very, very quickly. We're looking at the cylinders, or one of the 3 cylinders on the Flying Scotsman, and you'll see the piston rod. And of course, this is where the piston goes in and out, and is driven by the high pressure steam. And just as the wheels go round 7 or 8 times a second, the piston goes back and forth 7 or 8 times a second, and that is an awful lot of mass to keep moving and changing direction. They're called the smoke deflectors, or bat wings. They were added to this class of locomotive in the late 50s, early 60s, and were slightly controversial at the time because they're of a German design. The British design of smoke deflectors tend to be slightly more flat-sided and cover the whole of the front of the loco. But the drivers of this class of loco said that these smoke deflectors work very, very well.
Presumably it's not in full steam now, but for the untrained eye like myself, it seems to be. So how long does it take then to get it into full steam, as it were? Well, they've lit this locomotive up today at about 3 o'clock in preparation for 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So it's they like to bring them around gently. Get them. There's an awful lot of water in there that needs to boil. So a good 24 hours is required to get one of these ready for steam. Right, it's a small but no doubt a significant bit of a gadget here. Yes, absolutely. This is called a mechanical lubricator. This lever here is connected to the rods and goes backwards and forwards, and rotates this handle round as the locomotive is going along. That forces the oil that's stored in this container through all these copper pipes into the various parts of the steam locomotive. The world's most famous steam locomotive, and here we go. This is how you make it work. This handle here is the regulator. You open this and it puts start again. The regulator. You pull this and it enables steam to pass through into the cylinders. Up here we've got various gauges. We've got brake pressure gauge. Got the speedometer, of course, and then this is the most important gauge. This tells you how much steam you have available in the boiler. And then everything everyone always wants to do, this blows the whistle. Oh, yes. There's actually not quite enough steam to do that at the moment, but that blows the whistle. This is a very important gauge also. This tells you exactly how much water is in the boiler, and it's so important that there's actually 2. Mm-hmm.
There's quite a spacious cab, really. So, when this was in operation, how many people would you get in here?
Typically, you'd only, in the old days, you'd only ever have a driver, a fireman, and maybe an inspector.
So we're going really from the low tech, as it were, from the coal right up here to you've got your modern technology here, haven't we, Ben?
Absolutely. This is our GSMR radio. This enables us to talk to the signalman, and whilst we're on the move, and also the signalman to talk to us. And whatever you do, don't press the big red button. That's the tender corridor. That enabled the train crews to swap over the end of their shift without stopping the locomotive, enabling them to do King's Cross to Edinburgh without stopping. Walking through this corridor is quite narrow, it's quite confined, and can be quite dark. And walking through there at 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, even up to
So this is it. This is the cab of the Flying Scotsman. and it's something that kids in the 40s, 1940s, 50s, and perhaps even up to the early 60s would have really wanted to do. And even for adults today, it's probably on their bucket list of things that they must do. It's on occasions like this that people get the opportunity. But if you do, I'll tell you, it's really hot in this cab. This is Norman Bartlam for Big News on the Flying Scotsman.
Now, as you may or may not know, Big Centre has recently started a This Month in History feature, giving you a daily update on what happened on particular days throughout history. Now here's Norman with one of those stories.
September 1939 was the month in which the Second World War broke out.
The whole staff and 88 children leave here at 3:15 this afternoon for evacuation to Bromsgrove. Germany invaded Poland in the early hours of this morning.
This country is at war with Germany.
The sirens went off, that is an awful noise, that used to put the fear of God into you.
World War II is a subject that we'll be returning to later in the series. So if you have any memories of events from World War II, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. So that's it from this edition of Doorstep History, which is once again has been filmed here at Soho House in Handsworth with all its valuable artefacts. I think we've done really well, haven't we, to take care of everything?
Yeah, it's almost like you're preparing for something to fall by saying that.
No, let's go. That's it. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.
Well.